All right, so this video is a message for all of my fellow conservatives. And when I say conservative, I mean conservatives, not fascists, not white supremacists, not edgelords, not shit posters. Serious conservatives who are interested in continuing the conservative project in American politics. We have to stop protesting. The recent scuffle in New Orleans was being sold as the next civil war on right-wing internet pages, and everyone was super excited about it. New Orleans was supposed to be this big battleground between people who want to preserve history and the people who want to forward their socialist agenda by toppling down these monuments like the Puritans did to the Catholic Church. What we actually got was this.
They're coming with some violence.
I keep thinking that as these protests go on, and there seem to be a million of them nowadays, a breaking point will finally occur and people will start throwing punches on a massive scale. But the more I see police being trained for these events and the more I see liberal strategies at these events, I realize two things. The first is that it'll never happen, and that's a good thing. Antifa and these other far leftists who frequent these protests are begging for a fight, but they've never actually started a fight. They have been specifically trained to not instigate an actual fight at these protests. What they essentially want is a smoking gun that they can point to as a cause of oppression. I realize these conservatives who went to New Orleans were doing so out of a sense of pride and cultural identity, and these are good intentions, but if one of them actually does what these agitators want, we'll be playing exactly into their hands. Most of the conservatives who go to these protests are either going out of a sense of civic duty or they belong to small, disorganized conservative groups. The liberals, on the other hand, belong to groups like Antifa that are highly organized. They are very, very good at it. You know, they have pamphlets, they have instructions to read on the internet. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly what result they want to get. They have been told several times not to throw the first punch. They can chant, they can scream, they can annoy the hell out of you, but they will not instigate because that will make them look like the bad guys, and the whole point is to look like they're being oppressed. The second point I wanted to get across is that conservatives just aren't that good at protesting. I'm sorry, guys, we're not. We're not meant to be on the ground agitators. Where we work best is in government. Where we work best is in think tanks, talking policy, refining our ideas, all that kind of stuff. We would do well at the university if they would have us, but we don't know how that goes. Essentially, we don't like protesting. You know, just think about the Tea Party. It basically amounted to people just sitting in lawn chairs, talking, holding up a few signs every now and then. It wasn't like the leftist protests that are much more effective because they're much more media friendly. They chant, they march, all that kind of stuff. There was nothing wrong with the Tea Party, and if that's what conservatives are proposing, I would totally be with it. But this is a different thing. Protests like the New Orleans monuments protests are confrontational in nature, and we don't do good with confrontation. Most blue collar conservatives were raised to follow through with shit talk, right? They know how to fight. They know how to finish what they started. While Antifa has become extremely efficient at egging us on, and they want us to throw the first punch. We try to have actual debates at these things with the liberal protesters on the ground, and what we get in return is, he will not divide us, he will not divide us, all of those chants that we've all heard a billion times. It's annoying, but those chants are actually effective. Antifa doesn't want to have a conversation with us. They want to make us look like the bad guys, and it's actually working. It worked at these New Orleans protests. Another problem is the actual white supremacists who come to these things. We don't talk about it that much, but they are there. They're much fewer in number, and sometimes it's only 2 or 3 guys, but they're there. I mean, most of these sort of racist kind of people, they kind of stick to poll. They stick to these internet subgroups. I don't even know how serious most of them are. It just seems like sort of a cultural fad, to be honest with you. But there are a few who actually go to these things, and they do not make us look good because they end up co-opting our message. Conservatives need to just vacate these protests and leave the racialists to fight things out for themselves. You know, it should be black supremacists versus white supremacists. If that's what these protests were, that would be great, because America at large would not agree with the values of any one of those groups. You know, I don't agree with the values of any one of those groups. So where do we go from here? Since the Trump election, we've gotten very good with speaking on the internet through the internet's language. We've gotten very good at memes. You know, the beauty about memes is that it's a consolidated picture with text that distributes an idea to the mass populace usually in a humorous way, and that caters perfectly to conservative ideology. You know, we can point out the hypocrisy of the left in ways that are never done on mainstream media, and they usually end up being funny because it's a perspective that usually isn't bombarded to people every day. You know, these are new, these are fresh, and we're always making more of them. We're very, very good at them. You know, let's stick to that in tandem with what we've already done. You know, think tanks, essays, you know, real intellectual vigor to counteract the prevailing liberal narratives we get bombarded with. You know, let's stick to what we're good at. Let's stick to the actual work of refining our ideas. You know, we have a Republican president in the White House. We have a Republican Congress. We need to actually begin the work of saying, how do we reimagine what this country is to bring it back more in line with traditional values, with values that actually go along with the Constitution and all that kind of thing. That's what we need to focus on. The more we get involved with these protests, the more we get involved with Antifa, it's just going to not end up well. You know, it's at its best, it's a distraction. At its best, it's media clicks so that reinforce narratives on both sides. You know, that's not what we need. We need actual ideas. We need to begin the actual work of having serious conversations about policy, you know, because I don't know if you've noticed, Donald Trump is actually kind of failing right now. You know, he's changed his mind on a lot of stuff. I don't think he knows where he's at on a lot of stuff, you know, and we need the real intellectuals. We need the real thinkers in the conservative movement to actually stand up and talk to each other, you know, and make YouTube videos and make interesting, you know, Facebook posts and good Facebook posts, good writing and good ideas being distributed. That's what we essentially need right now. And if we keep going to these protests, it's not going to happen.
Would you agree that the Confederate flag represents
all right,
oppression?
why are you in it?
Would you agree with
I'm here because I think this is ridiculous.
All right,
I believe
Take
that.
it down! Take
I don't
it
believe
down!
in Mitch
Take
Andrews
it down!
taking the eye off of what's really going on.